So welcome everybody to the AGRAbility community of interest. Today's discussion on beekeeping. Today's discussion is going to be on led by Ned on assistive technology that might help beekeepers. And we're going to start by going through the toolbox and just a very open discussion on ideas. And Ned, it's all yours.
Okay. And Joe, will you take some notes as people give
Yep,
feedback today?
I will absolutely.
Okay. The If you go to the National AGRAbility website, there's a link right at the top of the page for the toolbox, and it takes you to this page that you're seeing now. I've got my screen shared. Are you all able to see the toolbox?
I'm just on a phone, so I'm not seeing the toolbox, but that's fine. You guys can still have your discussion.
Okay. So agrability.org, click on the toolbox link, and view by category, it shows a whole list of categories of assistive technology to help people working in agriculture who have disabilities. Scroll down to specialty enterprises, expand that link, and we have beekeeping. And so we have a small assortment of assistive technology for beekeepers available here on the toolbox. And this is where we're hoping to expand the assistive technology offerings for beekeepers. So we'll start clicking here on accessible beehives. And it seems like this is one that a number of people have been working on. I know there was a SARE grant where a group did accessible beehives modifying the AZ hive. So here's one, the Drubyville AZ hive. And maybe, Adam, do you have one of these that you're experimenting with? I know you had something like this that.
Yeah, I did have an AZ hive that was made by Precious Beehives here in Michigan that was donated to the Heroes to Hives program. I did use it for a couple seasons. It is from an accessibility standpoint, it's very nice. I mean, you're not lifting any boxes whatsoever. It's worked from the back of the hive instead of from above. There are some limitations with it because you are dealing with only a 3-chamber system. So it ends up actually creating a lot more work for the beekeeper because you have to constantly maintain space rather than just adding more boxes to keep space available for bees. But it is a really good option for those that are in wheelchairs or can't lift at all.
It's making me think that here on the toolbox, we should put some of the feedback, like what you just said, in the description so that people know what they're getting into, because this might not be a good solution for a commercial or somebody that's going to be working a lot of hives, but
Yeah.
maybe on a hobby scale, it's a good, practical, accessible option. The homemade easy lift beehive is the next link here. This is a person in Idaho that basically made his hive tip in the toolbox. If you click on any of the pictures, you can see a larger version of it. It's basically a patio option. Once again, probably something that's functional for the hobby sized beekeeper. The horizontal top bar beehive. This is one that Justin Ruger was getting. There was one being made for him, and I was just looking to see if the company that Justin Ruger was getting his from is not listed on the toolbox here.
Yeah, it's horizontal bees.
There we go. Good to have you with us, Justin. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah,
Have
sorry.
you received your top bar hive?
It's a horizontal Langstroth live, and he is finishing it up right now. We actually have it being tilted the reason it's taking so long is he had to design it so that it could tilt 45 degrees towards me when I'm working in it.
Hey, Ned, this is Joe. This is one of the ideas, that Stevie had as well, was the top bar hive, because they make these, and he was thinking about laying it as well. Stevie, did you want to jump in with ideas?
Yeah, I'll be happy to tell you what I was thinking of if you want to hear that.
Yes, definitely would like to hear what you have in mind.
We've been building horizontal hives for about 6 years now. They use a standard frame, standard 9 1/8 inch frame, and we've been making them 48 3/4 inches long. So it's exactly 3 times the length of a standard hive. A standard hive being 16 1/4 inches. Holds about 33 frames, which is about the same amount of comb space as a standard Langstroth hive with 2 hive bodies and 2 medium supers. And my idea for making this more accessible to people in wheelchairs, it's already a lot easier since you're not having to lift heavy boxes, but I thought we could make it even better by making the horizontal hive to where it would tilt out and down at whatever angle would be most convenient for a person in a wheelchair to be able to pull frames out. So that's basically what I've been thinking.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how the bees will build out in a permanently tilted hive. That's why when we were working with horizontal bees in North Carolina, we were making it so they would only tilt during inspections.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
I don't know how the bees will build on a top bar hive that is permanently tilted, because that's what you're saying, is to permanently build it with a tilt in it, right?
No, actually, it would be flat, except for when the beekeeper's inspecting it.
Okay.
I was thinking it could be we could have a stand on it where it would basically tilt in the middle, with my hope being that with it tilting right in the center, it wouldn't take much effort to make it tilt. Hopefully a person in a wheelchair could handle that. And if we needed to, we could also put some kind of like I'm not sure what they're called, but the little like a spring-loaded or a gas piston type of thing that's sometimes used to lift heavy lids, to make that tilting process really easy.
We had a conversation with the people at Horizontal Bees about maybe using fishing boat seat swivels mounted at each end of a top bar hive to allow it to rotate. And I'm not sure, Justin, if you know how or what the top bar hive that is being built for you, what mechanism he decided to use for that. Do you know, Justin?
Not at this point. He said the bottom is finished and the top is finished, and they needed to do the top differently because it needed to stay held up when it was tilted. So
Okay.
in their current designs, each as you can see there, the one in the middle, each part of the tops is independent of each other. So I believe he said he had to make it a top, like a solid top all the way across, and then put something on there to make sure that it stays up while the hive is tilted. I should have it, I think, by the end of July. So hopefully by the next meeting.
Okay. That would be good to get an update from you, maybe some photographs when you get that.
Yep, I'm getting a Sylvanian AZ hive, a Layens hive, a top bar hive, a horizontal hive from Horizontal Bees, and a Parkinson hive.
You guys have been
Okay.
talking about horizontal bees. Is that horizontalhive.com? The Leo Sharafkin guy?
Say that again.
This is horizontal bees. This is horizontalbees.com, and it's Ricky Rohr.
Yeah, Ricky Rorick.
I believe he's in North Carolina.
Yeah, I
Okay,
met him.
I don't think I've heard of them.
I met him at the Hive Life conference, and Joe Ricker and I actually talked to the person who puts the Hive Life conference together, and we're hoping to get a disability section in the 2024 Hive Life conference.
Excellent. That sounds good.
Are you guys going to be at the 2023 Hive Life conference?
Yes, I will be at the 2023 Hive Life conference. I'll be vending my books and then T-shirts for the nonprofit Accessible Beekeeping.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm planning on being there also, so maybe we can connect then.
Yes, sir.
Where's the 2023 Hive Life conference located?
Seaverville, Tennessee. It's January 6th and 7th. That's the Friday and Saturday. And then on Thursday, the 4th, or the 5th, I believe, they're doing a 3-hour meet and greet with the speakers and the vendors.
Okay.
And last year they had upwards of 800 participants. And then this year they rented out the whole Seaverville conference hall, and they're having it split into commercial beekeepers and hobby beekeepers. Last year they did talks to both of them, and this year they're splitting them up into 2 groups so that people could go to the talks that benefit them.
Okay.
And then we're hoping not this January, but the next January, Joe and I were hoping to have a couple of disability talks there.
Excellent. That sounds great. Justin, would you be able to share in the chat the names of those hives that you're going to have and be trialing out there in Virginia?
Yeah, so I'll type it as soon as I'm done talking. So I'm getting the hives this year, and I'm gonna put on our Accessible Beekeeping and More YouTube channel
Okay.
my videos of them and interactions, and how it works with someone who's in a wheelchair and other disabilities. And then I'm also going to next year do videos with bees in it,
Okay.
because it'll be too late to
And
start.
Joe, were you developing or working on a grant for developing an accessible hive type?
Yeah, so I have a couple grants pending, and I talked with Lace McCarty with Purdue Extension, and she recommended that we could go after a SARE grant in August for some ideas as well, and try to put them in the the beekeeping area at Purdue with Dr. Harper and try that out. But the quick answer is I may get money sooner than August, but right now I'm probably looking at a August submission. I was wondering, Stevie, are you going to go to the conference down in Evansville at the end of the month?
The Heartland Conference.
Yes.
I don't have plans at this point.
Okay. Just wondering.
You know, we did not do any introductions. Maybe Stevie, could you tell who you are? I'm Ned Stoller from Michigan AGRAbility, and I work with people in agriculture with disabilities all over the state of Michigan. What do you do, Stevie?
Yeah. Well, we sell beekeeping supplies here. We're in West Central Indiana. We also manufacture hives, mostly most of the standard Langstroth hives, but then also the smart hives. Currently, we sell mostly to hobby beekeepers, and we just sell here at the store. We haven't been shipping, but we're hoping to change that here pretty soon. We're hoping to be ready to start shipping our horizontal hives, or smart hives as we call them.
Okay. For those of you who can see my screen, Joe mentioned possibly doing a SARE grant, and this was a SARE grant project that I found and read about. It was someone testing the idea of converting Langstroth to AZ hive types, and I'm not sure how practical this is. They called it lazy hives, LAAZY hives, an ergonomic hive alternative. The idea was to allow hives to be worked, I think, without unstacking them. And this is a picture. It looked like they cut the sides out. And I didn't know if anyone else had looked at this SARE grant project. Is this something you've seen before, Adam?
Yeah, I have. And it's been a while, but if I remember this correctly, they basically just stacked this together and then just, I want to say that what they ended up doing was they just stacked the regular hive bodies together and then it looks like some 1x2 or 1x3 on the sides, and then had that back that opened up. They just took out that whole back, but yeah, it was one of, this is I think the only hive style I think that I remember from any SARE grants coming through. Most of the SARE grants that have been related to beekeeping, at least that I've seen come through the North Central region, have been focused on overwintering. There's been quite a few projects on that, different approaches to that, but I do remember this one.
Okay.
Practical wise though, I think one of the things I remember about this is that from a practicality standpoint, although it does allow you to convert a standard Langstroth to an AZ, I don't really know, from a practical standpoint, how good this piece of equipment would be. The thing that I've seen with other AZ hives that I've worked with, and I have had some good experiences and some very poor experiences with the quality of builds of AZ hives. But I think the big thing is that a lot of folks that are constructing these, many of them are woodworkers and not beekeepers, and they don't realize how much propolis will play a role in the inability to work some of these modular hives. One of the hives that I had in the past had some joinery that was on the doors entering into the AZ hives, and they literally just fell apart once they started getting propolized, because they weren't built strong enough to actually resist that propolis that's in there. So yeah, I'm looking at the back of this and thinking, this might be another one of those where how are you going to get those doors off once they're sealed up without breaking things?
Now, I've just in the brainstorming phase here, if we want to think a little bit about possible SARE grants if Joe is considering this. I've always pictured a filing cabinet with drawers that roll out and wonder if there's any possibility of incorporating that concept into beekeeping where you could roll out the hive and work on it and roll it back in. Probably it's going to be the propolis challenge. But have you ever seen or heard anybody even thinking about that?
I have not, Ned, though it sounds like a really great idea. I think the thing that to think about when you're thinking about construction of something like that, if the drawer glides were mounted on the outside of the beehive where they were not interacting with the bees whatsoever, you wouldn't have any problem with those being able to be pulled out. I mean, they'll seal up the inside, but there could be some way to kind of think about how we could create something that wouldn't be so hard to get out. From my perspective, though, something that could pull out that you could still work from the top is a far superior design than the AZ hives. I am not a big fan of working from the back of a beehive because you have less surface area that you're handling, especially when you're dealing with medium frames. It's just tougher to get those darn things out of there than it is working from the top. So that I think that would be a neat idea.
What about any of you other beekeepers or maybe Stevie that's building hives? Have you ever heard or thought about something like a filing cabinet style where the boxes could roll out, be worked, and then roll back in?
I've
I
thought
have
about
I've heard about it. Well, not heard about it. I've thought about it. But I never really figured out how you can make that work with like the slides, the drawer slides that you would need, and the propolis.
Okay. Any thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, no, I just, the only thing I could think of as you said that, Ned, was if you were to put a bar on the side of the box that was a big enough gap but small enough so the bees didn't get in, which would be difficult. And you could slide it forward with the bar. So instead of pulling it, you kind of pulled it from side handles, and then split it out. I was also thinking, but I think the weight would be crazy. Like a spiral staircase where you could actually maybe turn the hive box instead of lifting it, so it kind of flowered out. But I think you would have to have that pretty heavy staked in the ground. That's just some open thoughts I'm having.
Oh, like something on a door hinge per se at one corner. And
Yeah, or
basically,
just a pole that it spins around on.
yeah. How do the bees do with the top bar hive, Stevie, that you're building? Is it something that could be scalable for commercial production, or is it really a hobby beekeeper's hive?
I would say I don't really see commercial beekeepers using it. It's probably more just a hobbyist hive. Although I think that with it using the standard frames, it's probably more would be closer, would have more potential for a commercial beekeeper than a hive that uses non-standard frames.
How is the honey production? Is it comparable to a vertical hive?
I would say a little less because you're a little limited on the space. Like I said, it's got the same amount of space as 2 hive bodies and 2 medium supers, which sometimes 2 medium supers is all that you'll have on a regular hive. Sometimes you'll have 5 or 6 on there with a really good hive. Now with our smart hive, you could always take some frames out, extract the honey, and then put them back in for the bees to refill.
Okay.
One of the things that we have to think about when we think about commercial is that a lot of it is scalability and being able to send your hives to different places to pollinate them. So I don't know how well a top bar horizontal hive would work in a commercial setting, because they wouldn't pack onto a truck as well as the Langstroth hives do.
Could someone answer Candace's question? Candy from Colorado was wondering the difference between a commercial beekeeper and a hobbyist.
I could answer that, Ned. So in the industry, we have kind of 3 levels of beekeepers that we deal with: hobbyists, sideliners, and commercial. Hobbyists tend to be somewhere like 100 beehives or less. Sideliners tend to be about the 200 to 500 range, and then when you get over 500 to upwards of 1,000, you're at the commercial scale. The differences between those scales also really relate to how they keep bees. Hobbyists typically are not moving their bees around; they typically are stationary, whereas sideliners and commercial beekeepers a lot of times are taking advantage of pollination contracts, and those bees are being moved around the country pretty consistently. And that's kind of one of the limitations around these alternative hive styles, is that the industry itself is at the commercial scale is bought into the Langstroth hive design. Pallets that are used to move bees around are set up specifically for Langstroth hives. It's a specific system that they use, and they need that flexibility of hive size to be able to take advantage of honey flows in different areas, taking boxes off and on. And so the hives are constantly changing size, and oftentimes are shipped as either singles or doubles. So that's a little bit about that.
Thank you, Adam. I'm back to the toolbox here. The last one in the beehive section is this rotatable beehive system. I don't know that these are available for sale anymore. They might be. Carl Jackson in Corbin, Kentucky can crank a trailer jack and rotate it from vertical to horizontal, work your hive, and then stand it back up.
I tried to reach out to him, and the last I've seen him active was 2015, so I'm not sure he's doing it anymore.
Okay. The concept is here to look at. And that's actually, there's quite a few items in the toolbox that are like this. They might not be commercially available any longer, but they are left on the toolbox for people to look at for the concept and to learn and think about options that there might be. The next category under beekeeping is beekeeping accessories. And these are just some general tools and things that might be useful to be. I think this section needs to be fleshed out significantly. There's multitudes of tools and techniques and ideas for making it easier for people to do beekeeping. The heated uncapping knife, the tabletop hive frame uncapper. Adam, do you use tabletop uncapper, or at your scale are you using a heated knife?
I'm still using a heated knife. We're looking to go to a full uncapping chain uncapper here soon, but we're still using the heated knife.
At what scale, like kind of around the 100 hive level, would you start thinking about switching from the knife to this?
Yeah, we're pretty much at the scale right now with about 70 to 80 hives. It's just, it really what it comes down to is that when we do harvest during the season, our big harvest in the fall, I mean, you're talking 300-400 frames that we have to uncap. So although the heated knife is good at smaller scales, we've pretty much outgrown that. I'd say if you get above 50 hives, you've probably outgrown that heated knife.
Is anybody uncapping without an electric heated knife? That's pretty much standard equipment that everybody's using. Am I correct?
I think that's kind of at the high end for the hobbyist. Most hobbyists are not using heated knives. There's a lot of like perforation tools, there's scratchers, there's rollers, there's all these kind of like cheap uncapping devices that are usually around the $20 to $50 range. When you get into the heated knives, you're talking $100 to $180, depending on what model you're looking at. So I'd say most at the small scale are probably not using the heated knife. Bread knives are also a real common thing that folks at small scale use.
Are there other tools or devices that need to be invented or researched and developed on this, maybe the hand tool scale for beekeeping tasks, whether it would be gripping and pulling out frames, uncapping, handling the honey?
So I have someone here in Virginia says they know the fabrication lab at the University of Virginia, and I want to work with them about designing a frame holder that has a gimbal attached to it for somebody who may have a slight shake, so that they can hold the frame steady, and if their arm shakes, the frame stays stationary. So I haven't gotten into contact with anyone yet, but that's what I'm eventually going to work on. And then the other thing that I noticed you don't have on your toolbox is I believe Lippert makes it. They have a rotating honey extractor that tilts towards you so that somebody in a wheelchair can use it.
Yes. We're working on putting that in. I'm actually surprised it's not here. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, the
And then
extractor, it's a
do you-
rotating extractor. It tilts, 45 degrees, so you can fill it with the frames.
and I'm giving a talk at Oxford, North Carolina on next Saturday about accessible beekeeping. It's a small honeybee festival and conference. And do you mind if I put AGRAbility in the talk and some of these tools that you guys have already pulled together?
That would be excellent. Please do that, Justin.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Hey,
Anyway,
Ned, this is Joe.
Yeah.
The only other thing I had is the hand tool used to open up a hive, which is pretty much like a thinner crowbar. I think is really made for somebody without, arthritis or other issues. And I think there's a better way to construct that with a handle or maybe more length. That would make it easier for somebody with bad shoulders like me. Adam, you have any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, Joe, can you repeat that one more time? My internet was kind of coming in and out.
Sorry about that. I think you and I talked a little bit about the hive tool, and that the length of a hive tool, which is in essence, a small crowbar, to lengthen that a little bit might give somebody better leverage and or some sort of handle device on it, maybe to reconstruct that a little bit.
Yeah, and there are those available. There are some longer versions of high tools to get more leverage. And then there are several manufacturers that make grip hive tools. I know Man Lake used to have one that had like a rubber grip on it with the standard hive tool. But yeah, there are some longer versions out there as well. The leverage definitely does help. This the extractor that Ned's looking at right now. This is the adaptive extractor that Betterbee has come out with. I think it's a nice idea. I do have a problem with the type of extractor they're using because it's tangential extractor instead of a radial extractor, which means that your frames essentially sit perpendicular or sit parallel to the sidewalls rather than perpendicular. So that's the only thing I'd say that's could be improved on this particular model. But yeah, it was nice to see Lyson coming out with something like this.
This is a goal, I think, as we continue this conversation, is scaling up so that more manufacturers like Lyson will take this into account, that there's people with disabilities involved in this industry. The last major category in beekeeping on the toolbox is hive lifters and carriers. Uh, there's some here that are pretty common. This is the 2-person lifter you can get in any beekeeping catalog. The frame grip, which is probably in everybody's toolbox that's doing beekeeping. The Hummer Bee Apiary Orchard forklift. That's probably above most people's pay scale, at least on the hobbyist side and the sideliner side. When you get into commercial beekeeping, this might be more usable. I would comment here, we had a robotics club from the Escanaba, Michigan school system work at developing a hive lifter for a veteran who's keeping bees. They called it the honey helper. And I'm looking here for their first prototype that they built. Was a good, let's call it a proof of concept that Martin was able to work with, and it wasn't quite heavy duty enough. Here's a picture of it. It was built with prototyping and robotics materials. It had 2 drive wheels in the middle, support wheels at the front and back. And the challenge Martin had was he wasn't able to get close enough when he had hives on a pallet. But it was electric powered. He could drive it. It could lift hives without him straining his back. So we took this concept from the robotics club, which they did an amazing job here with this. We took it to Michigan State University to the senior design class in the mechanical engineering school, and they built out of steel what the robotics club had done out of aluminum. And this is what they came up with. Basically a miniature forklift for lifting hives. And the large box here at the back is a counterweight, so that if you're lifting a 300-pound load of hives, the weight is supported. And then it's driven by 2 electric motors, 24-volt motors. And unfortunately, they did not have time to figure out how to design the controls for steering and driving this thing. And I'm not an electrical engineer, and I couldn't figure it out either. So the day before yesterday, I took it back to the robotics club at Escanaba High School, and they are going to design the control system for driving this machine. And then Martin is going to continue the testing process. So it's been really a tag team effort between AGRAbility, Escanaba, Romo's Robotics Club, and AGRAbility and Michigan State University Mechanical Engineering School. So it'll be interesting to see how this design works out as Martin continues to test it. Has anybody else seen any kind of mechanized, like self-propelled hive lifter concept like this?
I haven't seen anything other than what you've shown today and at the AGRAbility conference when you gave your talk on accessible beekeeping. These would be great for Langstroth hives, but are we looking for different types of hives, or are we trying to make Langstroth hives accessible? Or are we just trying to do both of it?
Anything, both and, all of the above. Basically, as we continue this conversation, identifying needs, whether it's adaptive tools and equipment for handling Langstroth hives or adaptive hives to do it different, um, whatever would work to help somebody with a medical impairment continue working in beekeeping. So uh, I just show you that as an example of something that's in the development phase. I will say that this is not a simple process to start with a concept, build a prototype, test it, take it to the next phase of building the second prototype and testing it again. That's probably why Joe is talking about getting a grant, a SARE grant or something, because there's a lot of cost involved in developing and testing new concepts like this. It's taken a lot of my time, and uh, I think it's valuable once we figure something out to share this kind of information in the toolbox so it can be duplicated and other people can benefit from the work. So that's part of the goal of this community of interest also, is things that are learned by different people to get it on the toolbox database so it can be shared worldwide for people all around the nation and world to benefit from.
Hey, Ned, I'm not familiar with it, but is there opportunity in the Bridging Horizons contest to kind of get maybe like that school some funding for the parts and pieces for that?
Let's see, the Bridging Horizons is an Indiana contest for local high schools to do a project to help a person with a disability in agriculture. So I think that's just for Indiana, but this is an excellent suggestion for high school groups to work on. Would be beekeeping accessibility. I'm glad you brought that up, Joe.
Yeah, maybe we can look at leveraging that for
Yeah,
bits of funding. You know,
yeah,
the first place is $500, but that might just kick somebody over the edge.
right. So this manual beehive lifter and mover, this is similar to what Adam has used. I think his was the Captar lift. There's a couple different brands that are being made around $1,500. I think uh, I have worked with developing this concept, kind of a do-it-yourself version of using a two-wheel dolly, which has been moderately successful. I would say Gary Brown, who's shown here using it, he makes it work. It's not ideal. Once again, it's the challenge of working out the kinks and coming back to the drawing board. And uh, the companies that are manufacturing items have a research and development budget. They figure it out and make it work every time. When you're making something homemade, uh, getting it just how you want can be a never-ending process. So particularly with Gary's, the handlebars up here at the top that he grabs on to tilt this thing forward and back have been a challenge to get just right. The axle on the two-wheel dolly was not strong enough and actually bent. We had to go back and reinforce that. We did come up with a pretty nice system here for a crank on the side to open and close the arms to pinch on the side of the hive and get a hold on the finger grips. So that part I feel like we did pretty well with. We used a boat winch for raising and lowering it. So here's where the winch is at, and you can see this is one of the earlier handlebar styles that we had that ended up not being durable enough. So has anybody else tried building your own hive lifter? I know Adam's used a commercial one for quite a while with pretty good success, I think.
Yeah, the Captar lift it's a good product. I've used it now. Oh goodness, we're probably going on almost 10 years. And I mean, I still use it in my operation today. I'd say the big thing about these hive lifters is that at a commercial scale, they're just not really viable because the time it takes to move each box, or if you're going through an entire hive stack. The one nice convenience that I will say about these that does kind of expedite usage and does create an efficiency in our operation is when we're doing mite checks for varroa mites. We have to get down into the brood chambers, and during the honey season, when I've got 200 or 300 pounds of honey above the brood chamber, I can just use my hive lifter to move all of that in one shot and not have to move individual boxes. So we still do use it quite a lot. Yeah, that's the old model, and then Ned helped us get the axle or the tires reversed. This is how it came from the factory with the narrow wheelbase, and the intention was to be able to work between palletized equipment, but it ended up creating a massive tipping hazard when you got weight on that thing. So and that helped us with the engineering students get that fixed on there. So now the wheels are on the outside.
Yeah, that was another senior design project. I was looking here quick to see if I had pictures of that, Adam, with the widened axle. I'll look through some more of my pictures. Looks like I just have pictures of the before. Maybe we better get some of the widened axle. This, oh, here it
That
is.
might be it. Yeah.
Yep. Nope, it's
I
not.
don't know the old one still.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what it looks like now, though, is just like that picture.
So this is a different brand. Let's see, in the toolbox, Beehive lifters out of Minnesota, and so they have a wider wheelbase for theirs, so that it's not such a tipping hazard when the hive is being lifted. But it's a very similar design to the one Adam's using, with a handle on the side and rubber grips that pinch on, grip the hive. And what Adam was saying about inspecting the brood chamber, and you can lift all of the boxes above it at one time instead of unstacking each one individually, is a big bonus. So we're still in the process of improving our homemade version of the hive lifter, but hopefully we'll get there, and learn from people. I would say, Joe, are you the point person if people have brainstorming ideas and they're thinking about an accessible hive or some kind of assistive technology they want to be developed?
Yeah,
they wanna bounce
absolutely. I can
something
do
off,
that.
and just sort of as to help us not reinvent the wheel. If you get an idea and say, hey, I wonder if this has been done before, my job is to get more of these things into the toolbox and expand that section of the toolbox, and I'll be working at that on an ongoing basis. But then if any of you see really good ideas of other assistive technology and methods, send those to Joe, and we'll keep working at building this database.
Hey, Ned,
And if
I
you know,
wonder, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Hey, I wonder if we had Stevie's going to do great things when it comes to wood stuff and hives. I wonder if you had a connection with a machinist that we could ask to spend some time if we got SARE grant money or something to look at building a more affordable or simple, within your ideas of a hive lifting tool. Somebody
Oh,
who could
yeah.
work with metal as well as Stevie works with wood.
Yeah, there's a guy down close to south of Lafayette. If you wanted someone near to you, Joe, I can get you the contact information for him. He's a manufacturer, small scale manufacturer, does really good work south of Lafayette, Indiana. And that might be a good option, is to do a SARE grant on the farmer built hive lifter per se.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, if you want to send that to me, and Stevie, if you have any contacts in your community that work well with metal that you think you'd like to get involved, I'm more than happy to include them as well. I mean, I think it's an engineering balancing feat that I think's the tough part on this one.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Joe. I'll keep my ears open.
Thanks.
Candy, have you come across any beekeepers in Colorado with specific assistive technology needs, and that you're just wondering, hey, does this tool exist?
I have been fortunate enough to have some hobbyist beekeepers with disabilities, usually back, upper body strength issues and or mobility limitations. And what I've been able to do is just guide to the toolbox and talk about some of those suggestions and how they might be helpful. And I guess the real reason, Ned, I'm on this call with the limited knowledge I have is just to build on it. As I look in the toolbox and I read about stuff, I just was writing a comment. It's just really helpful to hear people say the pros and cons, what works, what doesn't work, who it'd be good for. Just really helpful, because as we all know, we hate to recommend someone make expenditures for something that's not going to be a good tool for them. So this meeting was really very helpful for me. I don't have anybody in the bee world that is really doing anything in any kind of production level. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for being with us.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Kind of the odd girl out here, but thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So, Joe, this brings us to 3:00, and I wonder if you have any closing comments or thoughts for our next conversation.
Let's think about that. I wonder if providing an update on some of the ideas expressed here, both in funding and who can do what and how we're moving forward in some of these areas, maybe just encapsulating it into a couple projects, lifting and hive construction. And then I wonder if there's another topic anybody else was interested in. I don't have one off the top of my head, but I think it would be great to include it if anybody had an interesting topic on this we want to include.
I think the conversation about networking at a Hive Life conference and thinking about our group getting together in person in some way would be a good discussion, perhaps.
No, agreed on that. And I wonder if yeah, no, I agree on that completely.
Maybe Justin wants to lead the charge on that discussion next time.
He dropped, but I can send him a note on that.
Yeah. So okay. Well, thanks for pulling this together, Joe, and we'll look forward to talking again next month.
No, thank you. Anybody else have any closing thoughts out there?
My only question, Joe, was if we get a hive put together that looks like it'll work, how do we get that? How do we get that in your toolbox?
So I think, and Ned, you can tell me if I'm off base. I think the first thing to do would be to maybe have Dr. Harper or over season it a year, to see how the bees do and make sure we're not missing anything in it. Like with the propolis and stuff. Maybe we could put it at the Purdue apiary, and then after that we could then look at putting it into the toolbox. I don't know. Ned, did you have another thought on that?
I think that's a great plan. Just making sure it's a good item, and then we can put it in there. Just send me the details of how it works and some pictures, and we'll put it in.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a good plan. And so if we get to that point, should I contact you, Joe, or should I contact Dr. Harper?
You can contact me. I can give you a call after this, Stevie, and we can talk through this in a little more detail. And we can work through that. But yeah, I think you can work through me. Dr. Harper and I have talked about trying to make the Purdue apiary more accessible, and then in the future when it's available, work with Dr. Ingrao and kind of make it a Heroes to Hives location as well. But we know that's probably a couple of years off.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
So
That's all I had, Ned. You want me to?
all right. Very good. Thank you, everyone. We'll look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you, Joe.